So many, many moons ago, um, I went with a friend and his mom to a restaurant, which was kind of like one of those Benihana restaurants. And if you haven't been to Benihana, it's one of those Japanese places where they cook steak and shrimp on a big grill in front of you. It's kind of a show. And this was years ago, so I hadn't really eaten much Japanese food. And um, and they asked me, "Hey, do you want to try some sashimi?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't really even take time to think about what that was, and that was my first time trying raw fish. And it came very simply. It was just a little plate with a few pieces of white fish, and we dipped it in soy sauce with some wasabi, and it was actually very delicious. It was quite mild, but really delicious. And it was just enough to get my curiosity going about sushi. And from there, I went on to try other types of sushi. And it's one of my favorite foods. And I wish I could budget for it on a regular basis. But in any case, I bring it up because it was a great example for me of really the perfect introduction to something new. And I think about that moment a lot because that moment could have been handled in a different way, and I would have a very different relationship to sushi, possibly no relationship to sushi. And I love this example because I think a lot of times when people are thinking about something like sushi, um, they might be trying the wrong thing. What I tried was a piece of fish that's one of the most mild and most delicious. And I often think about that because now I can eat just about anything in the sushi world. But I think about that day because if I had tried the wrong fish, I think it could have turned me off to the whole category, which would have been really unfortunate because it's something that brings me so much joy and the whole ritual of eating Japanese food. Um, so why am I talking about this? I'm talking about it because I think it's very easy um, for us to reject a category of experience when our first contact, so to speak, isn't handled well. Um, it could even be meeting a person, and if as they say, if you get off on the wrong foot, a lot of times people think, okay, this person is not the type of person that I like or that I jibe with, and it's almost like once that decision is made, it takes a lot to undo that in our thinking. It's like all of a sudden we're filtering for the things that we don't like rather than things that we do like, in a person, in a job, in a type of work, in a pastime, whatever the category is. So I think introductions to things are can be handled in really graceful ways or ungraceful ways. And the reason this came up for me today is I was thinking about something that seems very different, but I was reflecting on talking to friends over the years and talking to clients, and I heard people say something, and I've said it myself, and it goes something like this. People will say, like, I wish I could just do the work that I love or focus on my art, and I wish somebody else would take care of all the work part of it. And the first time I heard this from a client years ago, down deep, I just felt like something was wrong with that statement. Like it made sense to me on paper, right? It makes sense. Like, oh, if I could only focus on my art, everything would be fine. So get somebody to handle all the business part, and everything will be fine. And I think in a certain context, that makes sense. But what I've realized over the years is every endeavor has a degree of what people are calling work, or the business part, or that that tend to, it's like probably 10 to 20% that you find icky or gross. And what I found is, first of all, there's no field or endeavor that I've seen that this 20% doesn't exist in. And the other thing that's interesting is that 20% is different for everyone, because it's just what you don't like yet. It's, it's whatever you don't feel fits your personality. For some people, it's, I don't want to do my bookkeeping, or I don't want to do sales, or yeah, I don't want to go out and meet people, talk to people. The list goes on. It can be any of these things. But what I found over the years is everybody has some business they have to deal with in their work, whether you're an artist, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're a scientist. Like, there's some of it is just business, is just getting things done, getting work done. And I totally sympathize with this attitude, because that was my battle cry for years. It was just like, oh, if I could only just do work that I love. And thank God I do. But along the way to getting here, I learned to do a lot of business. And what I found was, every time I really sat down and learned something, even though I didn't want to learn it, once I learned it, it popped out of that 20%. Once, I think probably the most stark example for me was once I learned to grow my network, once I learned how to do what people call sales, my whole career changed. And it's something, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over many, many years. But in a certain way, I could look at it as, once I got over the resistance to that thing and really just settled in, then it like, whether it's sales or bookkeeping or any of these things, once I integrated any of these, then it just becomes something that you do, like brushing your teeth, and it's not a big deal. You don't sit there every day, oh man, I wish I didn't have to brush my teeth. It's something you do, and if you settle in with many of these things, you enjoy them. I've noticed over the years a high correlation between things that we like and things that we're good at. Or, once you get good at something, you tend to like it. And I've seen this with clients and friends over the years. The ones that resisted, I don't want to do my business, I only want to focus on my art. They're the ones that have struggled the most, and their business has struggled the most. So whenever I have that sentiment, whenever I hear myself sort of saying that mantra of, oh, I just want to do the good bits, I really pause and I say, okay, what is it that I'm resisting here and that I don't want to learn? And another great example for me was doing taxes. And the interesting thing with taxes is, you can pay someone to do it, but you got to do it. There's no negotiating on that. If you're going to stay in the country, you got to do your taxes. So that was something that I used to struggle with a lot. And over the years, sort of begrudgingly, each year I got into it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I do go to a tax professional, but I don't dread that part of the year anymore. It's something that I've just settled into, and I know the ritual, and for me, it's as ritualized as meditating or working out. I just, I allocate a certain amount of time, and I get into it, actually. So I think a really useful thing to do is to list down anything that you are resisting. That's the first thing. So make a list of anything you're resisting, and then make a list of things that you used to resist that now you've integrated, so that you get used to seeing, okay, this is the trajectory. This is how I gradually get into something, whether I go into it kicking and screaming or whether I go into it willingly. And then really you want to check off the things on your resistance list one at a time. You know, there can be just a gradual process, or sometimes people like to take things on all at once. It's like, okay, I've had enough. I'm digging in on my taxes, and I'm going to understand it, and I'm going to get through it. So that's what brought me back to this thing with sushi, because there have been other categories of food where when I tried them, it was like, boom, the force field went up, and I said, I'm never eating that. I will never eat that again. And I'm really, really glad that my friend brought me to this restaurant, and I tried that one piece of fish that was just perfect to open the door and invite me in a pleasant way. I think a lot of the resistance we experience has been supported by, kind of being forced to do things, maybe as a kid, and then very soon a subject that you might have enjoyed can become unpleasant, maybe because you got too much homework or something, or you didn't like the teacher. So what I like to do is just notice that and say, okay, that was the unfortunate getting off to the wrong foot, and now I'd like to redesign my emerging into that domain and gradually taking it on and really enjoying taking it on, or eventually enjoying taking it on. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoy that.